I do think that Elon's involvement in Doge and politics has alienated some customers on the left side of the political spectrum for sure. But it's also the untold story is like, okay, so how many people on the right side of the political spectrum have been brought to the story that usually would have been the guys that are coal rolling Tesla drivers?
Well, the Wall Street Journal seems to be at war with Tesla and Elon Musk. The paper has done a series of what appears to be very deeply reported stories on trouble inside of Musk industry, Musk Inc., more broadly, if you will. Last week's big splashy story suggested, or reported really, that members of Tesla's board of directors had essentially initiated a replacement search to sort of plan for what might happen if Elon Musk was ousted. Now, Tesla stock, if you look at it, has taken a hit since its all time high late last year, which, by the way, if I put up this Fortune headline from November, mid November, shortly after Donald Trump won the election, just the headline itself says it all. Elon Musk's Trump bet has paid off so well that Tesla is now worth more than most of the rest of the car industry combined. That is a crazy metric. But where Tesla stock is now is still it's come down significantly since that high, but it's still higher than where Tesla stock was not that many years ago. You can go back to 2020, 2010, 21, and it's taken a big hit over the course of the last 6 months, especially, as the Doge project has brought tons of scrutiny to Musk, but it's still up higher than it's been in recent years at different points. So maybe not a complete and total disaster for Tesla, at least, but I wanted to bring on a guest who could give sort of the fair and balanced, so to speak, perspective on Musk because there's so much doom and gloom surrounding him, and he is so powerful. And he remains popular with a not insignificant chunk of the American public. His approval ratings or his favorability, when you look at polling, has absolutely been going down over the course of Doge. He's become very polarizing and very controversial. But I saw this post from Farzad Mesbahi, who has a decent bit of interaction with Elon Musk on X, because he himself is a longtime follower of Tesla. He'll tell you all about this in the interview, but an investor and runs a show where he's talking all the time about, sort of updates from Tesla world and what to make of all of this political craziness as well. His YouTube channel is just Farzad, so Farzad. He's on X at Farzad as well at Farzyness. Make sure to give him a follow. Super interesting follow. His show is super interesting. And he posted in response to the Wall Street Journal story, well, there you have it. WSJ is trash confirmed. Can't have it be too smooth before Robotaxi launches. And so this was a quote tweet to Tesla, which put out a statement really in the early hours, the morning after the Wall Street Journal story dropped. It was at like 1:23 a.m. literally 1:23 a.m. I'm looking at it right now on May 1st. Very unusual for a major corporation to put out a statement that, early in the morning, obviously, but they were clearly scrambling to get something out. They said earlier today there was a media report erroneously claiming that the Tesla board had contacted recruitment firms to initiate a CEO search at the company. This is absolutely false, and this was communicated to the media before the report was published. The CEO of Tesla is Elon Musk, and the board is highly confident in his ability to continue executing on the exciting growth plan ahead. There's a lot going on when it comes to Tesla and the long-term ambitions of Elon Musk. Tesla is just sort of one small but very valuable part of that puzzle. So I wanted to bring Farzad on to talk to us as somebody who follows this really closely and is pro-Elon. There aren't many pro-Elon voices in the sort of political media right now. I'm very doom and gloom about Elon, as you know, if you've been watching the show. So just wanted to bring in somebody who I think does approach this with deep knowledge, nuance, and a pretty balanced take on everything that's going on, because I think that's really underrepresented in media right now. There's a lot of coverage about all of the things Elon's doing wrong, including, again, from myself. But I thought it would be helpful for all of us to maybe just hear out the perspective that, this is not all doom and gloom. This is not all inevitable, leading to an inevitable disaster, as Elon now makes his plans to extricate himself from the the Trump administration. As far as we know, that process is in motion right now. DOGE is winding down with Elon as the head. It'll mostly be run by administration officials in the future, people like Russ Vought, who aren't, Elon Musk himself, the singular figure of Elon Musk. So now's as good a time as any to try to peek behind the hood and figure out what on earth is going on with Tesla, what on earth is going on with Elon Musk and Musk Industries more broadly. So on that note, let's bring in Farzad Mesbahi to get to the bottom of all of this. Farzad, thank you for being here. Well, recession concerns are making headlines again, and experts, of course, are paying attention. Jim Walker, the economist who predicted the 2008 market crash, recently said he'd be amazed if a recession can be avoided. For those in or nearing retirement, this economic uncertainty is a real concern, very real. When the dollar declines and markets become volatile, traditional retirement strategies can be exposed, unfortunately. That's why more people are exploring gold IRAs. It's a way to include physical gold in your retirement portfolio. Historically, gold has maintained its value during recessions and periods of inflation, offering a potential hedge against economic downturns. This video is proudly sponsored by Augusta Precious Metals, who've put together a free gold IRA guide to help you understand how it works, why it matters, and whether it's the right fit for you and your financial goals. Gold IRAs are specifically for funds that are already held in a qualified retirement account like an IRA or a 401k. Big thanks to Augusta Precious Metals for supporting this video and for making this resource available for free. If gold is piquing your interest, you can download your free guide by clicking the link below.
Thank you for having me. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you on the show. I just want to ask if you could give us a little bit of background on your experience with Tesla in the past to kind of set up the conversation here.
For sure, yeah. So I was an investor in Tesla, the company, since late 2012. I've been a big fan of the company. I've been a big fan of Musk Industry. I joined the company from 2017 to 2021. I was on the supply chain side in a leadership position. And after my time at Tesla, I started a YouTube channel just basically on a whim for fun, talking about my experience, giving my thoughts about the company and sort of Musk Industry as a whole, technology, artificial intelligence. And now I've been doing this YouTube media thing for the last 3-4 years. People still watch me, shockingly, and so I'm still going to do it, as long as people come back. So that's a little bit about me.
Have you ever had any personal contact with Elon Musk? You probably get that question a lot, but have you ever talked to him, or is it just sort of through X?
Yeah, so never in person at the company. I did shoot him a couple emails with recommendations. He replied to every one of those emails with his sort of response on those, but never in person. It was always through email communication. It was literally a handful of times. And weirdly enough, post Tesla, and now that I've been doing this YouTube thing and posting on X and stuff, I've talked to him, quote unquote, talked to him or corresponded with him more on X by a factor of 1,000,000. Than when I was at that company. So that's weird.
That's actually very funny. Let's talk about the Wall Street Journal series of reports from inside Tesla, because I'm curious, and inside Elon Musk world in general, I'm just curious what you make of this reporting from the Journal. They've been kind of all over the Tesla beat, which is quite interesting. And last week, the big story was that Tesla's board had reportedly started to look for replacements for Musk. That was denied vociferously by Tesla, by Musk himself. So let's just start there. What did you make of that story and then Tesla's reaction to it? Because you followed how Tesla typically responds, how the board operates. So what do you think the truth was?
Yeah, I mean, so this is not new. This has been happening forever. In the mid 2010s, really mainstream media with the Tesla story and the Musk story has always been mostly negative slant from my perspective, especially as it pertained to the Tesla, the company. For the longest time, there was all this, stuff about how Tesla's going to go bankrupt, how they have a leadership crisis, how everybody's leaving, how the cars are catching fire. Because we're media, we know this. Like, as soon as you know that there's going to be a keyword out there or some sort of framing of a big attention name that's going to get the clicks, usually those stories will be made and they'll try to fit that narrative. So that's been my experience with mainstream media as it pertains to the Tesla story, the Musk story. With this specific story, I think it's mostly incorrect, mainly because if you look at the recent history around Tesla and the board, just very recently, the board reapproved Musk's comp package that the Delaware judge was trying to basically, force them to go back and renegotiate for whatever reason. And if you really follow the Tesla investor sentiment, the retail sentiment specifically as well, it's definitely mixed, but there's still a lot of support out there for him. And the board at Tesla, one of the criticisms they get is that over the years specifically is, Elon's not new to sort of weird things out in the world, like saying weird things or doing weird things, smoking pot on Rogan, joking about Tesla going bankrupt. You had that whole taking the company private at $420, which the SEC slapped him on the wrist for. You have the whole Thai cave thing. I mean, he's not new to controversy, but through that whole period, the board has been very friendly towards Musk. They've been very supportive of Musk, and I think it's because they understand the value he brings to shareholders and the company. I mean, he's a one-of-one engineer from my perspective. I think it's very hard to argue that he's not great at what he does, just from a business perspective and actually building giant industry. So now I do think that company is likely trying to do some sort of succession planning for the future. I think that's wise for them to do. So maybe that's where there are nuggets out there that very much could point to that. And I think it'd be wise for the company to do that, especially given how much attention Elon's been getting lately and sort of the attacks against the company. It makes everybody wonder, it's like, wow, if something were to happen to Elon, but like this doesn't seem like it would be good for Tesla at all. And we saw that, right? When the piece came out from the Wall Street Journal, stock was immediately down 4%. And you would think all the people that are saying, "Oh, he's terrible for the brand," and he's definitely pissing off a lot of Democrats. Let's make sure we 1000% sort of call that out. All in all, from a net impact perspective, I would argue that Elon's still a very positive force for Tesla, and you saw that in the stock price. The second that piece broke, the stock went down. So I think it's it's the usual mainstream media likes to just write stuff to get clicks. With Tesla specifically, very rarely have these reports been accurate. And I think the fact that the board denied the claim to Wall Street Journal, if you believe what Tesla and Elon Musk are saying, and the Wall Street Journal article still didn't include that rebuttal from Tesla, I think to me points that maybe they have some sort of, I don't know. It's hard to tell what they want to do with these pieces, but I would be shocked. I would be shocked if the company is seriously looking at replacing Elon. I think that's completely off base.
Is there anyone on the board or adjacent to someone on the board that we could kind of trace a likely leak to, or someone who may be more likely than not to be planting things? Do we have any idea?
I would be extremely surprised if any one of them would be doing something like that. Like I said, I mean, if you look at, I think one of the things that Elon does really well. I mean, this could also be part of the criticism because he does get quote unquote away with so much, is that the board is fully aligned with Elon in all his companies, if you just track. And I think it's because Elon he's got a big stake in each of his companies. Tesla, he has 13%, so not nearly as much as the other ones. But everybody knows that he is the central force behind the technological advancements, all pushing the culture, pushing the vision. And I think from an investment perspective, it makes the most sense to have somebody like that at the helm of your company. So I honestly, I have no idea why any board member would be looking to do that, because they know. I mean, like I said, you saw the story broke, stock was down 4% immediately. So and if you're a board member, if you think you're going to get Elon out would be good for the company, I think that board member maybe is like high that day or drunk. I don't know. Like it doesn't make any logical sense why any of his board members would want him out of the company.
So that's what I was going to ask you about, actually. The point you just made based on the stock dipping after the journal story comes out, that cuts against conventional wisdom that Elon Musk's tenure in Trump world after the Butler assassination attempt, then down through the campaign and now into the DOGE epic, has been a disaster for Tesla, for Elon world in general. But what you're saying, again, like that cuts against the conventional wisdom in the media. Can you make that case for us, why you think that's wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a lot of noise around the Elon story. There's definitely a lot of noise around the Tesla story. I do think that Elon's involvement in Doge and politics has alienated some customers on the left side of the political spectrum for sure. But it's also the untold story is like, okay, so how many people on the right side of the political spectrum have been brought to the story that usually would have been the guys that are cold rolling Tesla drivers? Like I experienced this. I've been a Tesla owner since 2016. Like I got cold rolled like 3, 4 times. And this was way before Elon got involved in politics, right? So that might be happening. So there might be some quote unquote brand damage, but the other side of it doesn't get talked about. And then the one that's completely ignored is the middle 80%, 70%, 60% of the country that's not really that political. They just want to enjoy their life and buy something that's good.
Mhm.
Okay. Those people are not going to be paying attention much closely at this at all. And you can even see that in the first quarter numbers of the company, that even though the sales were down year over year significantly, it was a bad earnings quarter. The company still relative to other EV competitors was performing pretty damn well. And at the same time, they were having their best selling car was having a giant manufacturing switch over where basically all factories were switching over from the old Model Y line to the new Model Y line. And so what that means is that the factory line is going to be down for a little bit. They're going to have to rebuild it and bring it back up. So even through that period, they were still able to sell a bunch of cars. Now, I will say that for us to really gauge if long term this has a legitimate impact to the company, we'll still need additional quarters to come through.
Mhm.
But so far through this quarter, it doesn't seem like the impact is going to be nearly as quote unquote bad as people are making it out to be. And so I'm more than happy to say that hey, we'll find out for sure if there are negative impacts to the company in 3-4 quarters time. But I think just the data so far that we're getting from the company and just tracking sales in the channel, sales might be soft, but so are Rivian's and so are other players as well around the globe.
Well, yeah, it's interesting, and you mentioned Rivian, that one of the big narratives about Elon Musk, and I've explored this very much myself, is that his relationship with the Trump administration, if anything, should be making Tesla more valuable because the
Yeah,
fear is that he would be exploiting his position to help Tesla. But the sort of left can't have both of those things be true at the same time. That he's right. That he's on the one hand trying to make his businesses get benefits because of his proximity to the government, and on the other hand, oh, Elon's cooked, like Tesla's flailing.
exactly.
Why are those two things not happening? Are there long-term benefits that he could be getting right now that we won't see for 10 years? Is this mostly about SpaceX and Starlink? Like, if we take a 30,000 foot view, do you think there was any strategic business approach that Musk brought into government, or was he doing this sort of authentically at cost to his companies?
I think both. I mean, I think it would be unreasonable to think that Elon's not doing this for a little bit of gain for his businesses as well. I mean, literally every business or individual that gets involved in government that's trying to like make the country better, if they have a business, in theory, they're going to say, well, my company's making the country better. So of course I would want my company to win, but I want every other company to win as well, right? So it's impossible for me to get into his brain, but I've seen him, I've studied how he operates, and I do think generally speaking he's not the kind of guy that will pull the ladder behind him. He does try to does try to open up the ability for other companies to succeed. So I think one of the benefits we're seeing that we saw in the last week or two actually is that now there's going to be a federal framework for autonomous vehicles, for self-driving vehicles that the Trump administration was running on before they got elected. That said, hey, we're going to try to unify the federal autonomous vehicle regulations. So the reason why that's such a huge deal is that right now you have a bunch of states that are trying to come up with a patchwork sort of style of figuring out how to get self-driving cars out there. And for people that follow the company closely, this is something Tesla's been working at for the last 6, 7, 8 years. Is truly self-driving cars. And something like this is going to be a gigantic win for a company like Tesla, but also any other company that's going to get into autonomous vehicles, because that's going to allow the propagation of this technology to come much faster. Now, where Tesla's positioned very well is that they theoretically, if their technology actually works, is that they have the scale. They're building 1.7, 1.8 million cars per year. This year, they want to get over 2 million. In the next 5, 10 years, they want to get to 10, 20 million cars per year. And if every single one of those cars are autonomous, but there's no regulation to allow those autonomous vehicles to work, then you're sitting on dead inventory, right? So that's one of the big places where I think Tesla can get a big win. Now, the argument is okay, self-driving cars are going to be much safer than human-driven cars. There's 36,000 deaths per year in the United States from car accidents. I think like a million injuries or something. Something in Texas, 10 people die every day from a car accident. 50% of them are not wearing a seatbelt, right? So there's a definitive case that can be made from a better outcomes for society perspective. But Tesla would be a giant winner. But they're a winner because they've spent the last 8, 10 years building out this technology. But so would Waymo be a huge winner. So would Zoox and all these other players that are working on autonomous vehicles. And then on the SpaceX Starlink side, I mean, my argument would be their technology is so far beyond of what any other rocket company is doing with the reusable rocketry, which lowers the cost of space by 10, 20x basically versus any other player, that at that point, if the government doesn't do contracts with Starlink and SpaceX for space type stuff, as a taxpayer, I'm going to be like, what are you doing? Why would you pay Boeing $10 million or $1 billion when you can pay SpaceX, 100,000, whatever the number is? You know what I'm saying? From as a taxpayer, I'm like, that's crazy. Of course, I don't care if Elon is freaking Trump's best friend, right hand man, guy on his shoulder. I don't care. Do not go with Boeing. Go with SpaceX. It's way, way cheaper and way, way better. So, and that's what he's got to fight. It's like the dude just happens to make the best stuff. So that's the thing that sometimes gets weird. It's like, okay, so are we just giving it to him because he's doing good stuff, or are we giving it to him because he's his friend? And that's where each side is going to pick the one that most closely aligns with them.
Yeah, I think that also makes a legitimately good case for him exiting Doge, and sort of disentangling himself from Doge in the months to come. But the other thing I
Right.
wanted to ask about here was Tesla at one point, I think as recently as late last year, had a valuation that was higher than like every other major car company. And I wanted to ask you, as someone who's followed this, been in this space and followed these stories closely, now that Tesla's stock is shifting, that hasn't changed, right? Like the value that Tesla was built upon at that time, that investors were seeing at that time, is, and you can explain this to laymen like myself, there's a fundamental technological value that hasn't changed. It's just sort of Elon that's been in flux on this journey over the last several months. So is there an argument that Tesla's stock sort of rapidly recovers in the next 6 months to a year?
Yeah. So none of this is financial investment advice. I don't know what I'm
Of
talking
course,
about, et
yes.
cetera, et cetera. Right. Yeah.
Yes.
So the that's such a good question because that's been the like from an investment perspective, that's been the battle. That's been the battle with Wall Street. That's been the battle with retail investing. Is like, what is the right way of trying to value a company like Tesla? People like myself and people that are much higher on the artificial intelligence technology side of the company, this whole time the argument has been they're not really a car company. The car is just the vessel for them to get the supply chain and the technology stack ramped
Hmm.
so that they can become an infrastructure company with energy, with batteries and solar, and a self-driving car company with the autonomous vehicles, and then a human or robot company with the technology that the cars are going to use to navigate the real world. The same technology is used for the human or robot. And so psychos like myself are going to tell you that of course it's going to go way higher because the market for robotaxis and human or robots is 10, 20x what it is today. 5 trillion, 10 trillion, 20 trillion valuations. And I can sit down and make a case for you that those can be the numbers. It's just heavily dependent on the execution of the technology, not necessarily the creation of the technology, because from my standpoint, they've created the technology. The flip side is, well, they're a car company and that's 90% of their business. And so they have to be valued as a car company. And that's wall, and then that's the battle of the price action. That's the battle of the valuation. So today I think it's at 275, 276 or something. And so from that perspective, I think the market cap is like 700 billion or something. It's still, I believe, last time I checked, they're close to, if not already more valuable than the rest of the legacy automakers combined. But that's because, again, they're working on a fundamentally different thing. So it all depends on execution. I think they have to get the robotaxi stuff figured out. They have to get the self-driving stuff like fully unsupervised, no driver behind the steering wheel and pedal. They have to roll out their human or robot. And I think if those two things start to play out and they're actually doing paid rides without anybody in the car and they have human or robots doing helpful things in the factory, then at that point, the people like myself, their argument will begin winning in the market. And the people that perhaps weren't sold on that start modeling that into their Excel spreadsheets. They're like, okay, so if they can get 10 million robots built at a cost of $30,000 per robot, that means you don't have to pay insurance, you don't have to pay them a quote unquote fair wage. You can replace him if there is an injury. There's no HR, and then the economics of that go to a place that become really weird because now all of a sudden you don't have to manufacture humans anymore to do labor. You manufacture robots, right? And the only way to make humans is by what we got to do, and the world is not doing that nearly as much as they used to anymore because the fertility rates are coming down. So it's like this. I don't want to make this that because I could go for 2 hours. So that's the battle on Wall Street right now.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And the Elon's popularity ratings have gone down. Doge was supposed to do 2 trillion in waste, fraud, and abuse, cut that, then it was 1 trillion, and now it's down. We don't totally know, but it's a lot less than that in all likelihood. How is the like very robust Tesla community of people who talk about these things like yourself? How's everyone reacting to kind of the arc of Doge, which started initially with Elon and Vivek Ramaswamy operating outside of government on an advisory capacity? Elon takes over USDS day one, and now looks like he's quietly kind of decoupling, consciously uncoupling, maybe to borrow Gwyneth's phrase, in the next month or so. What's the kind of big takeaway or the big sentiment that's in Tesla world about Elon's tenure in Doge?
Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective, it's like equally split.
Hmm.
One side says he's distracted. This is bad for the brand. Like why are you doing this? I get it. Like you supported him, but like you're doing this thing again where you're soaking up all the negative attention, and your name is attached to the brand. What are you doing? The other side says, listen, if he didn't do this, the Democrat Party got into office, they would just continue the demonization effort,
Mm.
right? And they might keep pushing it and pushing it, make it harder and harder for him to do business. They keep pushing the evil billionaire line. And then Elon says, okay, screw it. I guess I'm gonna have to move my business out of the country, or something else, right? Or something else could happen. So I think one side will say this was a necessity. It had to happen. And even with Doge, the Doge effort itself, I think from my perspective, it's a legitimate effort to try to make the government better. I don't think Elon operates from a perspective of like evil, or a perspective that's purely self-serving. I think he tries to make civilization win, but he also wants to win with civilization. And I think from a person at his stature, that's probably the best we're gonna get, honestly, is like somebody that does good for civilization but also wants to win. Okay, cool. But the other side, they definitely say that's not his problem. Like when he bought Twitter and turned it into X, the same exact thing happened, right? Because people were like, "You're distracted. You're out there, shooting out memes and getting yourself into freaking fights with random people. You should be this, excuse me, you should be the CEO of Tesla. You should be making sure that we're going down the right path." And then the other side will say, "Well, he runs SpaceX and Tesla and Neuralink already. Like, what's another thing? He obviously knows how to multitask. Just let the goat do the work. Let him." So it's like constant back and forth, constant back and forth. But I think if there's an overarching theme, I think deep down, and obviously like they wouldn't be investors if this wasn't the case. Everybody believes that he is by far the best person to lead an effort like a Tesla or a SpaceX, or not, right? He's way too talented, and he's way too good at engineering and way too good of a businessman for him not to be thought of that way. It's like if you have Michael Jordan, like why wouldn't you put him on the team? Of course you would. It's just in this case, this Michael Jordan loves to stir shit up. And that's just what you're gonna get, right? And I think that's depending on your comfort level of how much you're willing to tolerate, or how much you're willing to absorb those punches when they come. That dictates how much you're willing to maybe invest in a company like Tesla or be part of that story. So, and different people have different tolerance levels. And so that's why this world is always so interesting to talk about, because this feels like one of the stranger times in history,
Hmm.
and Elon feels like one of those key variables in that time. And so talking about it is always a good time. And yeah, so but that fight has been happening since he joined the Trump administration, and it's probably not going to go away probably until he is 100% severed, or the media attention on that goes so far beyond, like it's so muted that nobody even knows is happening. And then the robo taxi launches, and then the humanoid robot launches, and then the stock price goes up. I mean, I will tell you, if the stock price goes back to all-time highs, or it goes above all-time highs, none of this matters. Like people
Right.
will be like, okay, fine, he figured it out. So yeah, it's complex, weird, but fun.
Which, by the way, yeah, that's not impossible that that happens. In fact, it's, there's a good likelihood like something like that would happen. So last
Agree.
kind of big picture question is there's all sort of conspiracy theories about Elon Musk, and some of them aren't even conspiracy theories. I mean, he said he wants X to be the quote everything app. Obviously, all
Yeah.
of his companies, he wants them to be revolutionary. He wants them to change the world. He wants them to be enormously powerful. Is there any like really big picture analysis? Like, what is the Elon Musk end goal by the end of his life? Like, what does he want to have seen all of these technologies? Is it that he wants to use X to train the world's most powerful AI that can then go into Tesla and into SpaceX and into all of these different, what's the big picture thing that he's building with all of these kind of seemingly disparate parts right now?
Yeah. Great question, and I think that's part of what makes this story so fascinating to follow. Is like you're trying to figure out what this guy that's in so many different places that seems so different. What's his plan? Like, what are you actually trying to do? From my perspective, all of this is anchored around going to Mars. So he wants to go to Mars. Okay. But Elon's not the kind of guy that says, okay, let's do that. And then let's step back and like, okay, we did it. Yay. I'm going to go retire now. It's like, no, okay, we're going to Mars. Okay. So what are we going to use to land? What are we going to use to ground? What are we going to use to build? How are we going to terraform? How are we going to build businesses? How are we going to make sure people can come back and forth, right? And so if you really think about his other sort of things that he's working on, with Tesla, electric vehicles operate on Earth, but you know where else they can operate? Mars. Why? They don't need oxygen to operate or air to operate like internal combustion engines, right? So Tesla vehicles or electric vehicles in general would be great candidates for moving around the surface of the planet. Boring company. Okay, cool. Tunnels, great idea. But you know where else would be a good idea to sort of protect yourself from the crazy weather on Mars? Underground. Huh, that seems like a good idea. Maybe we should start trying that out here, right? SpaceX is very obvious. To and from. Starlink, the internet company. I wonder how we can communicate with each other. Should we lay down wire or should we just use freaking, satellites? Oh, Starlink makes a lot of sense, right? Now, the AI question with X is like, okay, so how will people talk to each other on the planet? Interesting. We need some form to actually communicate through the internet. Huh, maybe an app where you can talk to each other and communicate and do everything else you need to do while you're communicating. That would be useful. Oh, that same data that we can use from people communicating, we can train the artificial intelligence to figure out what humans want, and then maybe that can be an accelerant. Okay, cool. Maybe we should do an artificial intelligence thing on top of that. Humanoid robots. Wow, that seems like a crazy idea. Is it? I mean, they could be working on Mars while we start, populating the planet, right? All of these different variables that Elon's. It's almost like Musk industry here on Earth is Mars beta. That's the way I think about it. Is that he's trying it, from my perspective. He doesn't publicly say this, but I think when you put the pieces together, it becomes really obvious that every single one of the things he's working on, outside of maybe like a Neuralink, perhaps maybe Neuralink, he says that it's more of like an AI play to try and make humanity sort of guard itself from a super intelligent artificial intelligence where you can connect with it instead of just let it just overrun you, basically. That's his justification. We'll see. Almost all the pieces are part of a Mars plan, and they make so much sense in that perspective. And the question that I think the audience will have to grapple with, and I think this is going to be the thing to talk about for the next 5 to 10 years, is that if Elon Musk is successful, he is by far the most powerful person on this universe. He has access to so much industry and so much capability and so much power at the foundational level that the question becomes, okay, what does that mean for civilization, right? What does that mean for civilization? That is something that is coming. I don't think it's going to be one of those things where, well, Elon Musk is going to be, he's going to go through Doge and Tesla's going to be great and he's going to retire and he's going to go to Mars and sort of like, go to sleep, and have a good life. He's not wired that way. I think he really has a goal in mind. He wants to get stuff done and he is going to get it done. That's it. He's going to get it done. And it's up to the civilization to decide, is it doing it for the right reasons? Is it doing it for the wrong reasons? Is it humanity's like forcing function, or is it humanity's like evil dictator that he's going to grab power with regardless? That's the actual conversation we should be having about Elon. From my perspective, like if you look at his actions on the whole, my argument would be he is a net contributor to society for sure. He is helping dramatically with America's capability of becoming self-sustaining from an energy perspective, a supply chain perspective, from a national security perspective. If the United States doesn't have SpaceX, our capability to go space does not exist. Like, I don't think people realize just how unbelievably valuable SpaceX and Starlink are to United States defense and national security. Same thing with Tesla, with the battery supply chain and manufacturing and all that stuff. We see it with the tariff stuff. Everything's freaking made in China. Tesla's one of those like shining examples. Like, hey, you can make stuff in the United States, and not only stuff, you can make energy that can make the grid fully independent because you're not dependent on other countries to perhaps import energy from, right? You can just freaking use solar and use batteries to store energy from the other sources too. So that's the conversation. That's going to be the long-term conversation. Is I think I think this guy's going to be the world's first trillionaire, two double trillionaire, triple trillionaire. You just do the math and assume he's going to be successful. That's where the math goes. And so, what does that mean? What does that mean for society? What does that mean for civilization? Are people, do they default have a stake in his company so that if he goes crazy, we can vote him out? I don't know what that means, right? But that's where we're going, in my opinion. And so that's, I think, how people should think about this story. I think they should, I think they should be, from my perspective, I'm equally impressed and very, I admire the individual in a lot of different ways. But at the same time, if he's successful with what he wants to do, that's a lot of power, man.
Hmm.
That's an individual with a lot of power and a lot of ability to literally use the world to whatever he wants to get done. What does that mean? I don't know. So we should just be vigilant. We should watch, and then if it starts going sideways, we should probably speak up and say something.
I cannot tell you how helpful this conversation was. Thank you so much. It was fascinating and super, super useful. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so I said to producer Rachel as soon as we wrapped that interview, it was fascinating. I was so glad that Farzad was able to make this and kind of walk us through the case for Elon Musk. Because as I said at the beginning of the show, it's vastly underrepresented in political media. I certainly contribute to that vast underrepresentation with all of my doom and gloom about Elon Musk, but we tend to cover him almost myopically through the lens of these daily political stories. And this is not a man who, is operating on that granular basis. As far as we can tell, he's always sort of orchestrating something or doing what he's doing in the interest of a really big picture scheme, which is why probably some of the granular stuff doesn't make sense to critics, to investors, and people who are observing on a daily basis what's going on with any of his given companies, but particular with Tesla. That doesn't mean that his strategy is brilliant or doesn't have, different self-interests at play. I think that's clearly the case. And I think Farzad mentioned that's, likely, in all likelihood, there's truth to that. But it does mean that the story is often more interesting and more complicated than we give it credit for being in the media. It's sort of easy to flatten Elon Musk into a one-dimensional supervillain when that doesn't really serve the narrative at all for anyone because it doesn't allow for kind of the truth, good or bad, to be hashed out in the public square. So on that note, remember you can subscribe at undercurrents.tv. You get premium episodes of the show. You get a weekly email from me, a private email address to communicate with us directly. Please send us more emails. We love them. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and over on YouTube as well. We will see you back here with more Undercurrents soon.